Everyone, today we'll be talking about Borderlands 4. As you know, I have been covering so many of the Borderlands titles through my streams, well, a few of them, and then I also been doing some reactions to the trailers and gameplay, been kind of discussing here and there as we're building up towards Borderlands 4, and now that the day has finally come, I actually decided to buy Borderlands 4 because I've seen some reviews on the PC, how it ran, and I was very cautious when coming into this. Luckily, when it comes to Steam, I have a PC and everything, and I was planning to play the game on PC, but I didn't really expect the game to be as optimized. Anyway, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about my first impressions, but I know you guys are very curious of how the performance is running, so we're just going to hop into it. I'm not trying to make this video very long. So I run a AMD 7900X, so I do sort of have a high-end CPU. I do have just a 4070 Super. Again, it is, although it's still relatively brand new, it's not as considered the high-end within the GPU market. And it's very funny because the recommended specs for your when coming into Borderlands 4 is that you must have at least a 3080 GPU when it comes to NVIDIA. I was a little bit cautious when coming into this, and luckily again with Steam you're able to refund the game within 2 hours. When I read the specs and when I read that the game wasn't as optimized within the Steam reviews, and also I've been seeing some clips here and there, I didn't really know what to trust because when it comes to online reviews, especially nowadays, I think people get very, they tend to exaggerate a lot. I didn't really know what to believe, and there was no big official performance reviews out there. Don't get me wrong, I do think, as someone who has played the game for 8 hours straight on stream, by the way, if you want to check out the stream, go ahead. That's the proof that I was actually running the game quite well. Not probably what you would necessarily expect, but it was just good enough for me. That's what I'm just trying to say. When I came into this game, I was using DLSS, and I did tweak some settings, either lowered some settings that would relatively take up a lot of the resources. I did not play on max settings. I played at high at the most. I was, again, throughout the stream, turning off and on the frame gen if it was really needed. Unfortunately, if you own a GPU that is very similar to the 30 series, it's gonna suck because the game does not run well for a first-person shooter when frame gen is off. I've also noticed in other content creators' reviews that whenever they do turn off frame gen, they run at least 60 to 70 or 60 to 90 frames. It kind of goes around there depending what type of GPU they have. From the people that I personally saw, they were kind of on the same tier as my GPU, which is why I decided to also buy the game. But whenever you turn frame gen on, it changes a lot, and I was able to at least average around, I would say 110, 120 frames. I could not get above 120 frames, by the way. So I just locked my frame rate on 120. And I know that might sound, honestly, disgusting to some PC users out there. I recently played Tiny Tina Wonderlands, and I capped it on 120 frames. And to be honest, that was honestly perfect to me. I know I don't have, big standards when it comes to frame rate. I understand that because, when you come into PC, you want to play with so many frames and all that. But personally, to me, I didn't need all the frames. Again, with Tiny Tina Wonderlands, I just capped it on 120. It's also the fact that I stream within the same PC, so I didn't want my GPU to freak out either when I'm running the game and playing it and streaming all in the same time. 120 honestly felt very, very nice on Tiny Tina Wonderlands, but this 120 in Borderlands 4 felt different. I think because of the the frame generation and the requirement of NVIDIA low latency. So sometimes I feel that my mouse, the way that my mouse inputs, when I'm aiming or just moving around and turning, it did feel a bit off. This is all a thing because the game is just simply not as optimized yet, and I hope they get to that very soon. But so far the game has been running great, especially how there has been an open world. There's a whole open world in Borderlands now. I had no idea that they were actually going to double down on the open world and actually make the world feel much more dynamic. So there's a lot more things happening, and I'll get into that later on. In the early reviews, when content creators were able to cover it and had like an early access to the game, they said that they were dealing with a lot of hitches every time they would get into a new area, and it would be kind of bad because it was like a big hitch and the game would freeze up a bit. But in my case, in my experiences, I personally did not experience horrible hitches. Of course, there was a hitch here and there, but they lasted literally a second and the game just resumed just fine. I also didn't really deal with any crashes. I didn't deal with like crazy glitches or bugs. The game was a bit bugged here and there, but you know, when in terms of when it came down to completing certain side content, because there's a lot of activities to do throughout the world. Other than that, like I said, my stream is up if you want to check it out and see for yourself how it ran. And again, this is all happening within the same PC. So the fact that I was able to stream, run the game, and you know, still do whatever on my PC, I was honestly very surprised. I came into it thinking that my GPU was gonna freak out along with the game, but I'm very happy that the game looked fine throughout the whole entire stream. So that's it of, you know, when it comes down to my personal experience with the performance. Again, it could vary considering what type of CPU you have, as this game is very heavy on its CPU. Also, I do want to note, since my boy, he's actually playing the game right now on his, I think, 5090 or 5080, whatever he has. He's either of those GPUs. He told me that he was able to run the game in the beginning section, the introduction. He was running the game on 190 to 200, and then as soon as he hit the open world, which is somewhat when you're somewhat out of the tutorial already in the beginning levels, he dropped down to like 50 to 40 or 50 to 60 frames, which is so unfortunate. The average frame rate that he was running on throughout the open world, which is like the core or like your base game at this point, is again like probably 135, 130 or 240. That's how it's currently running on the 50 series. So, and as someone who is very critical with the lack of optimization within a lot of games that is being ported over to PC, I'm happy that I'm actually able to play the game on launch, but I'm very sad that some people are having bad experiences. And do what you will with the information that I just put out. Again, it could all vary depending what type of CPU you have and also GPU, because again, I do realize that I still have a good GPU and I realize I have a very good CPU. I guess this is the time where I should be talking about the gameplay and how the overall game is, since I was able to stream the game 8 hours straight and just simply enjoy it. Now, this is a big game considering how Gearbox did not have a lot of appreciation, you know, of Borderlands 3. A lot of people were a bit unhappy with how Borderlands 3 was executed, and to be honest with you, I was those people where I was the minority, where I was pretty content with what I have. I mean, it's the typical Borderlands games, but I understand people want to see actually something different compared to 1 and compared to 2. So Gearbox was actually serious about Borderlands 4. Like I was very surprised that they actually doubled down on the open world. This is the open world where it actually feels very natural of the game, of where it has progressed so much throughout the games. This really feels like the refined version that they initially wanted it to be. I'm not gonna say like their open world is as like game changing and it's different among other open world games. It still does the typical, you know, you might have to go to this tower, you could say, you might have to go to certain areas or zones if you want these certain things, but this is a Borderlands game, and Borderlands is so good with its gunplay, its gameplay overall. It just has that satisfying gameplay loop. Coming into this, I just found myself so distracted on doing so many side quests. I just got so overwhelmed because they just keep popping up around the overworld. It just wouldn't end. It honestly feels like an MMO, but in a good way, because it's a Borderlands game. And then there's so many dynamic events that happen in the game, because sometimes in certain zones, and it's very clear that it's a dynamic event because they have this whole like arena bubble, and you just go into it and all of a sudden you're in this like sort of raid event, you could say, but as a solo player, I'm just soloing like these bosses. It's honestly, it's just so addicting because of you get the loot, you're exploring and checking out these areas. Like, there's actual some meaning when you are doing your exploration. It's honestly very, very fun as a first playthrough experience. I don't know how it's gonna be like for a second playthrough if I were to play or replay the whole entire game with a different character, but the first playthrough experience so far has been amazing. Again, the amount of different like activities in a Borderlands game is kind of nuts. I just did not expect it at all, and I'm just a bit bewildered by it simply because I didn't think we would actually have an open world Borderlands experience. That's really it. So with that being said, I don't think you guys really need like a much more in-depth experience because it's still the same Borderlands game that you would know and love from the previous titles. It's just that the layers of when it comes to its design, they really structure a lot of things that is for the open world experience. You have much more of a sandbox experience in the game compared to the linear experiences that you would have in, again, like the previous original titles from back then. This really feels like we're coming into a whole new era of the Borderlands franchise, and they did say that they were gonna do like a whole soft reboot on the series. You know, props to Gearbox. I'm not impressed because I've expected them to really make me happy regardless, because I was always happy, and they're very consistent with what they do in their games. Again, I love Borderlands 3. It was like no big difference to me from the previous titles. I've enjoyed nearly every Borderlands game that is out there. I just haven't played the Telltale games. That's really it. I'm sorry. I know people love that in terms of its lore, but I just never got into it. I'm not into those type of games. So I guess it's time to talk about like the negatives of how this game is. I really have no big negatives. I think it's just more so the game does need some polishing, some life quality changes in terms of its open world. Like, for example, like you have this whole new GPS system that you could see within the overworld because your Echo device is giving you like a route on where to go to a certain location. And as much as it is functional and it does help you navigate throughout the world, it is not consistent. It is actually very confusing to kind of read and go where you need to because of how many markings there are. It's not as clear. In the UI, it gets a bit confusing here and there. It gets a bit overwhelming, to say the least. And another thing is, I played the game on hard mode, and I really love hard mode. I forgot to talk about hard mode. We'll talk about that like very soon. But there's always a lot of enemies, and the fights can be intense when playing on hard mode. Every time I'm running around, jumping around. Here's the thing, man. I keep getting stuck on like random geometry within the map, and sometimes fights could feel awkward because I'm not moving around. And we just played not too long ago Doom the Dark Ages, and I was just able to go around the map and zoom and feel great on just shooting up these crazy demons. Like, it was amazing. With Borderlands, they could give that feeling, but there's so much environmental obstacles in your way. Sometimes they're not even purposely like obstacles, so they're just random, again, geometry on the floor or wherever. The fights could feel awkward sometimes. What's another one? What's like another like issue within the gameplay that I could think of? I can't think of like another. Yeah, I think that's honestly really it. I don't have big complaints about the story so far, considering I just been running around doing so many random things around the map. So I can't really talk about the story just yet. I did some side content or side quests, and yeah, it's the typical Borderlands that you would expect. And I don't think they're as chatty compared to how it was in Tiny Tina Wonderlands. I was talking about in the end of the stream how I was very like overstimulated with that game just because the constant talking, like no character would literally shut up, and you're constantly fighting. Again, you're doing the typical looting and shooting, so things are happening all at once, and then you're hearing people talk, and I just want the game to breathe. Honestly, just breathe for a second. Let me live the moment. Let me experience this. You don't always need to be talking. So in this game, it's kind of like that, because considering how Borderlands is such a fast-paced game and having long dialogue, I don't know. I feel like it's just not as of a good match as of right now. Again, with Borderlands 4, with how it's they're handling it, it seems okay. I mean, again, I'm just minding my own business, just constantly doing different things. I do think that you could be very overwhelmed when you do start out the game. Like, if there's any sort of newcomers coming into Borderlands 4, the UI just overwhelms you with so much stuff, and then there's no way to view the tutorial again. I don't think so. If not, correct me. But yeah, there's just so much tutorials within the UI and within the gameplay. And sometimes they come way later than what you would initially expect. So you just kind of get tutorial dumped a lot of times. And that was a bit annoying. And I know you could just turn off the tutorial, but I have to know all the mechanics. Like, especially, you know, again, if you're a new player, you want to be aware of these certain scenarios. That's really it. You know, to wrap it up with the gameplay mechanics and with what I also really loved about it, was, again, the hard mode difficulty. I have never really started a Borderlands playthrough on a hard mode difficulty, and the reason why I did it is because when I read the description, you get more money. I think you do more damage to the enemies if you are fighting them with the correct elemental affinity. An example I could give, if you want to actually hit the enemy's weaknesses, sometimes enemies have shields, so if you want to take down the shield ASAP, you would use a shock elemental weapon. In hard mode, they said that you will do much more damage than usual. I don't know the exact numbers to it, but that was honestly pretty cool. So there's benefits on playing hard mode. I like how you get rewarded for playing hard modes. You gain 10% more cash than usual. You do take more damage, of course, in the game, but again, you could do more damage towards the enemies. But it's also the fact, this is very important, that the loot quality is better than the other difficulties, so I really like that a lot. So right now, my loot, it has been pretty good. I only own, I think, maybe only a few legendaries so far. A few legendaries, I think, so, or maybe just one legendary. I forgot, because, you know, they did give me free stuff in the game when I bought it, and they did give me like legendaries that I can't even like access yet, like, because it's locked for a level 30 character. I thought that was pretty cool of them to do. So I felt, again, more motivated to play on the highest difficulty for the first playthrough, and I love that a lot. I also like the grappling hook. When I first saw it on the trailers and the, you know, earlier gameplay when they were promoting it, I really thought that this had like potential. It's definitely going to change up the movement of the game, but it really also benefits a lot with the jetpacks. I mean, Borderlands has naturally evolved. Like, this, I low-key feel like I'm playing the Black Ops 3 of Borderlands, because you have now like jet booster packs. You could say you could jet boost around the map, but it's not as like crazy as what you would think. It helps you within combat, or if you're trying to get to places within your vicinity. It's not going to help you obviously get across the map, but within battles, or if you're just trying to like get to certain places, you could hover to certain parts of like higher ledges. You could also, they added a dash in the game, which I really liked. Instead of you just tanking the damage, you have the ability to dodge now, and you could pretty much dodge only twice, and then you run out of the jet fuel. But I do hope maybe later down the line we're able to upgrade our like jetpacks, but if not, I guess that it's fine, because the gameplay overall has been so fun. I really have no complaints of the gameplay, but I love how there's just much more movement involved. I also feel like there's just much more engagement in the game. There's so much multitasking, because it's not just you shooting now. It's also, I mean, with the character that I chose, I picked Amon, and he throws a lot of axes, and I also have throwing knives on me, so I'm throwing knives, I'm throwing all these axes, I'm shooting the same time. You could shoot and throw like throwing knives the same time. There's a lot of engagement as a player, and I really like it a lot. And then, yeah, because you're always moving, you're boosting up, you're boosting down, you're dashing out, you're dashing in, you're throwing all these sort of stuff. You're doing your signature moves or your ultimates. There's a lot of stuff actually happening in the gameplay. It really feels like this is the most technical Borderlands game, and when it comes to gameplay being much more technical, I love that a lot, because it just encourages players learn the mechanics much more, and also you're just much more engaged on the constant gameplay. Overall, yeah, I I have no issues with the map. I barely explored the map, by the way. It feels like I've explored a lot of places, but I have a big map to like go through apparently. So I'm not even close. I'm 60% within the campaign. This game might be pretty long, to say the least. Let me know how you guys are personally feeling. Remember to drop a like, subscribe if you haven't yet. Remember to hype up the video. That is like a new system or feature in YouTube. It will put my video into the algorithm much more. So, but thank you for all love and support. I'll see you all in the future. Peace. I need to play more Borderlands 4.